Hey guys, I'm Dav. Today I'm playing some more Total War Warhammer. We're taking a look at a replay between myself playing as the Beastmen versus Colonel Watermelon as the Vampire Counts. My forces will be led by Morghur the Shadow Gave, of course with his Staff of Ruinous Corruption and all his goodies. We've also got a Gorbel here with Blood Greed. We've got a Bray Shaman Lore of Wild. Let's take a look at his spells. He's got Vile Tide, Devolve, and the lore attribute Bestial Surge, which is very important. As you cast the cheap spells like Vile Tide and Devolve, this will proc, which gives your guys 10% vigor map-wide every time you cast a spell, and that is very important for the Beastmen in terms of keeping your troops fresh. Most people underappreciate the value that vigor has in long-term battles, and especially in an attritious, potentially very long matchup like the Vampire Counts. You definitely want to have something to help keep your troops fresh in some regard. Even if you can't heal them directly, at least you can restore their vigor. Plus, Devolve is very good against ethereal units, and what do you know? My opponent's brought 3 Cairn Wraiths. He's also got 4 Graveguard, one of them being the Sternsmen, 4 zombies, 2 White Kings on horseback with Vlad von Carstein, and the Claw of Nagash to round things out. The rest of my build, I've got 2 Centaurs with great weapons here, along with the Centaurs with throwing axes, who've been doing a bit of harass action. We've also got 2 Ungor Spearman Herd, 3 Best Gore Herd in the center, and a Giant for some extra killing power. So we're going to get things rolling here. As you can see, I tried to drop a Vile Tide right on those Cairn Wraiths, but I didn't quite get a good hit. So I decided to not try that again, at least for the time being. We're just going to kind of let my opponents come to me. Most of the time, it behooves you to do that against the vampires. You can see a nice Devolve getting dropped in there, doing quite a bit of damage to these Cairn Wraiths as well as these ones. Invocation of the Heck, though, is being used to counter, so that's pretty good. We're able to draw out some more magic from Mr. Vladdy Daddy here. And any magic that you can draw out from the vampires, they very much rely on their magic to be able to support their army. And if you can drain their reserves of magic, so even though that spell didn't end up doing a ton of damage, in the end he was able to fairly easily counter it. Still, he had to use some of his magic to do so. And I would say that his magic is going to be more important than mine to a degree, although I will need to make sure I use my magic appropriately to deal with these Cairn Wraiths. Terror is a strong mechanic definitely against the Beastmen and against the Greenskins. So the Claw of Nagash and these 3 Cairn Wraiths, who all cause terror, are going to be a bit of a pain to deal with, and they're definitely going to need to be high priority targets. So we're going to get the front line engagement underway here. You can see the Sternsmen clashing in the center with the Bestigor Herd, backed up by Cairn Wraiths. This combination will actually do very good against the Bestigor Herd because they do have fairly low melee defense at only 20. And the Cairn Wraiths do bring some armor piercing, as well as the Sternsmen, all Graveguard actually, do have a bonus versus infantry. So these Bestigor Herd here in the center are in some trouble. But we've got Giant and Morghur here to support them, so hopefully they'll last a little longer. These Bestigor Herd here are also matched up against Graveguard. Out here in the flanks, I did get caught a little off guard here by these White Kings, but they will take quite a bit of damage from these Centaurs with great weapons, so that's not a terrible trade for me. Would have been much better if I was able to get the charge, though. You can see here in the center, these forces are not doing well leadership-wise. The Sternsmen have taken a ton of damage in terms of the Giant and the Bestigor Herd and everything. The Gorbels in here as well. Looks like Morghur and Vlad are going to lock in for a bit of a duel here. 2 very tanky lords. This is a duel that could take several minutes, if not hours or days. Because these are some of the tankiest lords in the game, so their duels, I'd imagine, would not be the most exciting affair, but would probably last quite a while. We were pulling up some Chaos Spawn here from some of my opponent's forces that are getting low. Definitely just trying to keep the balance of power in my favor. Whenever you summon the Chaos Spawn, it definitely tips the balance of power pretty heavily in your favor. So you can see here, we're just kind of working through. These Cairn Wraiths are getting fairly low. I am trying to continuously zone out this Claw of Nagash with my Gorbel. He's fast enough that he can, look, he's coming through there. He can just push through the infantry. And even if he doesn't end up doing a ton of damage, which he will if he gets a hold of it, but he could just chase it around and zone it out and keep it away from supporting this main fight here, which is very, very important. Over here, these Centaurs with great weapons have routed. They'll come back, though, and I'm bringing up my throwing axes here just to kind of harass and distract and maybe allow these guys a chance to come back. You can see a great devolve coming down here, finishing off those Cairn Wraiths. Gonna send these Cairn Wraiths in a critical binding as well. They're actually crumbling now. And, yep, using the Giant again just to zone out the Claw of Nagash, deal damage to it, not let it sit here and support this fight. Because if it just sits here and soaks up, you know, all the hit points of your troops and is just perpetually healing the vampire troops, that's not what you want at all. So, over here, these, probably not the best use of ammunition against these zombies, but hey, no big deal. This White King is going to get a little bit isolated here. He's going to get a little bit left behind by his friend, which is not going to be great. But over here, most of the vampire front line is crumbled. Mine has as well. He's just got mostly zombies hanging on with a couple units of Graveguard and a few Cairn Wraiths mixed in. But the Giant's still fairly strong. Morghur's in good health. Vlad is also in very good health. You can see my opponent's trying to block the Gorbel here, but these zombies are too pitiful. Gorbel will just walk right over them and try and charge on through. Actually missed his charge a bit there, but another Vile Tide going off, trying to keep my troops fresh. You can see these guys here are fresh. The Giant, let's take a look at him. He's tired, so he's been fighting the whole time, but if you look at the units he's been fighting, these guys are all drained, so you know, it's definitely important to be able to have that vigor. You know, that's why the Grumbling Guard are so good and why Grail Knights are so good in the late game, because they're immune to vigor. You know, Grumbling Guard will help buff the vigor of your other troops, so that's very important as well. You can see Gorbel's getting in here. He's getting in some great swipes here against this Claw of Nagash, just not allowing it to sit still for a moment and just continually pushing it around. And this is what you need to do when you're facing a Mortis Engine, is have a unit that can deal enough damage to it and get to it and just push it around the battlefield. Keep it away from this main engagement here. You can see the balance of power is finally starting to tip a bit in my favor. Another beautiful, beautiful Vile Tide going off, doing a bit of damage. Nothing too substantial, but mostly just there for the vigor buff. And you can see, yep, looks like we are going to get some terror routing in my guys. That is going to be a bit of an issue here, but the Giant and Morghur, along with the Chaos Spawn summons, should be able to fairly well tank out the rest of this. As long as Gorbel is able to continue to chase this Claw of Nagash around, so he gets another great attack in there, and at this point I decided, you know what, the throwing axes can probably finish this thing off. I'm going to have him get in here and start dealing a bit of damage to Vlad, see if we can break his leadership, and he gets a good hit there. Despite Vlad's tankiness and regeneration, after the Claw of Nagash goes down, his leadership is shot, and he starts disintegrating very fast. So, fun game. Definitely very close. Feel like it could have gone either way, honestly, if my opponent had done maybe a better job of protecting his Claw of Nagash, maybe brought... You know, Blood Knights are tough because Gorbel will do very, very good against Blood Knights as well, but I feel like they might do okay there. Just you need something to protect this Claw of Nagash, something with enough mass to stop Gorbel from just running through, because he mostly just brought infantry. And the White Kings were busy tied up, you know, with the Centaurs with great weapons, so they didn't really have the opportunity to counter Gorbel either. So he ended up being very good, and honestly, you'll see a lot of people bring more than one Gorbel. Honestly, I think that's a bit overkill. He's fairly expensive, and he's not the most durable of heroes. He can dish out a ton of pain, don't get me wrong, he's very powerful, but spending that much gold is, you know, you definitely have to get your money's worth out of it. So in terms of my other units here, this Giant picked up a Chevron. My opponent really didn't have any anti-large troops, any dedicated anti-large troops. Despite that, the Giant did take quite a bit of damage, but was able to get 122 kills, a single Chevron, you know, definitely useful. The Bestigor Herd, this one got a little bit crushed, but this one picked up a Chevron, 75 kills, 134 kills here, so that's very good. Morghur doing his thing, summoning up the Chaos Spawn, and then this Bray Shaman Lore of Wild, 144 kills, man, just running around on that chariot. My opponent, again, just didn't have the mobility to counter what I had here. Very infantry-heavy build, which can work with the vampires, being that, you know, a lot of their abilities require you to be within a certain AoE or, you know, area of effect. So it can help, but I would probably say maybe cut these Graveguard. The Sternsmen are a good pick, but cut these Graveguard and maybe bring... maybe cut one Cairn Wraith as well. 2 Cairn Wraiths is probably a pretty good idea, but maybe bring Cryptors and Skeletons instead, just give you more density, and then the Cryptors can be the ones to dish out the armor piercing. They also have Regenerate and other things, so they're very strong. But overall, very good game, very well played to Colonel Watermelon, my opponent. Definitely enjoyed playing that. If you guys enjoyed watching it, definitely hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and we'll see you next time.